Tonight, one person is dead, 3 others injured in a shooting in the city's Parkdale neighborhood.
We have a very large police presence in the building. We've got officers going floor to floor, stairwell to stairwell.
Police searching for suspects and more potential victims in an apartment building after 2 of the victims were found inside. We'll have the latest from the scene. Plus,
we drive as though it's the summertime, and we really have to acknowledge that winter is different.
it's still fall, but the GTA getting its first taste of winter today. The snow making for messy conditions on the roads, and there's more to come. How to make sure you're prepared, and
why is the Premier not taking leadership and wearing a mask to protect our children?
A maskless Doug Ford taking heat at Queen's Park this morning, a day after the province's Chief Medical Officer of Health recommended all Ontarians start masking up again. Good evening, I'm Kelda Yoon. We begin in Parkdale, where 4 people were shot this evening, 1 fatally. It happened at an apartment building on Dunn Avenue near Queen Street West, and that is where we find our Dale Manukduk, who's been there all night. And Dale, it is still an active scene.
Yeah, Kelda, a very large and active scene here. Toronto Police, many of their resources have been here throughout the evening, including canine, tactical, and forensics. Now, several victims were found in multiple locations, including inside the apartment building behind me and outside on a TTC bus. Now, as you mentioned, 1 person was pronounced deceased, 3 others shot and injured. At around 5:30 p.m., Toronto Police responded to reports of someone being shot at this Parkdale apartment building on Dunn Avenue. When they arrived, they found 2 victims inside. Officers discovered a victim in the lobby and commenced life-saving measures. That individual was subsequently transported to hospital in serious to life-threatening condition. I can't confirm it right now, but he is at the hospital. A second victim was found in a unit on the 3rd floor. That victim has now been pronounced deceased. He is an adult male. A 3rd victim fled the building and was found on a TTC bus, a woman who was rushed to hospital. Police don't believe her condition is life-threatening. There was also a 4th victim, a man who walked into a hospital and is receiving treatment. Police confirmed that all injuries were the result of gunshot wounds. Police say they're looking for 2 men wearing dark clothing. We're still searching for suspects at this point in time. As I said, we've got a large police presence going through the building looking for additional suspects and victims if that may be the case.
Everybody to Queen Street, please.
Residents who live in the building were asked to shelter in place, while those trying to get in were held outside, some on a TTC shelter bus.
I have my daughter inside. I don't know how she is. My phone battery is dying. So there's no way I could contact nobody.
So the police officer told me that I couldn't go into the building or past the tape because there was a shooter and the shooter was still in the building.
Police would not confirm if they believe there was a shooter still inside, but say they are searching each floor and stairwell. CBC Toronto's cameras did catch police escorting 1 man into custody. I can't confirm that the person currently in custody is one of the suspects in the shooting. I know that somebody is in custody, but I can't confirm they're related to the shooting. Now, Kelda, police say that this is a very dynamic and fluid situation. The scene is still being held by several officers, including the forensics unit. Police are asking that anyone with information, no matter how small, contact them.
Thanks for all your work tonight. That's our Dale Manukduk live for us tonight. A 17-year-old boy who was rushed to hospital with critical injuries after being stabbed at Birchmount Collegiate yesterday is now in stable condition and expected to survive. And meanwhile, students returned to the Scarborough High School today, some still shaken after what is the 2nd violent incident at the school this year. Chris Glover has more.
A heavy police presence today at Birchmount Collegiate greets a rattled school community.
It's kind of scary knowing that people are willing to snap.
Honestly, I don't feel safe.
Yesterday, many students witnessing the aftermath of the stabbing inside the school right before classes let out.
We just hear his teachers shouting, and then he yelled out to someone there that go to the office, someone got stabbed. And then we started panicking, and then the announcements were like, oh, we're on lockdown now, so that's when everything started.
Police say a 17-year-old victim is stable in hospital with serious injuries. The TDSB says he was a grade 12 Birchmount student, and while several classmates have identified him, CBC isn't naming him since we haven't spoken to his family.
I've had class with him before.
He was a good student.
Grade 12 student Kalen Sharkey thinks more needs to be done to prevent violence in schools.
It's an institute where we're supposed to learn. Now we're supposed to see these kind of things happen.
This past April, there was a stabbing at Birchmount that also left a boy with serious injuries.
My one is still sleeping. It was a traumatic experience.
Anna Sideropoulos is a parent of 2 Birchmount students and is on the school council.
I think we have failed as a society when our kids think that this is normal.
She thinks lots needs to be done, including more lockdown training and a mentorship program.
It's very important at this critical time not to shut parents out, which I feel is happening already. Our meeting has been canceled for tonight.
The decision was made to postpone that meeting. But again, I think it's really important that the conversation is definitely had with parents. It's just given everything going on right now, I don't think there was the bandwidth to do that this evening.
The TDSB says it'll review hiring more safety monitors and social workers, but the board is calling on the community and governments to help.
I think if we get everybody in a room and discuss what more we could do to make absolutely sure that all of our schools at all times remain safe, that is something that I've indicated as a high priority.
While the mayor says he hopes that meeting will happen soon, police say their investigation at the school is ongoing. Chris Glover, CBC News, Toronto.
The GTA hit with a blast of winter today, our first significant snowfall of the season, and not surprisingly, it created some havoc on the roads. And with more snow on the way, it's best to be prepared. Greg Ross has more on how you can do just that.
It was a busy morning at Bento's Auto and Tire Center. With the snow falling outside, many drivers were scrambling to get winter tires. Bento's was forced to turn many customers away.
We only can do so much. In some cases, they may have to wait a week.
Snow tires or not, the freezing temperatures and slick roadways make for some dangerous driving conditions. Toronto Police Constable Sean Shapiro says drivers need to plan ahead.
And possibly the best advice we can give you is to slow down and drive safely. Give yourself lots of room. You need to be able to predict, or at least to react to the unpredictable events that are going to take place in front of you.
In addition to snow tires, the CAA says there are other things you can do to ensure your car is ready for winter.
Get your battery checked. Even a fully charged battery can lose 30% of its power when temperatures dip below 0 degrees.
The CAA also recommends checking the car's fluids.
You want to make sure that your car also has all of their fluids topped up. That's making sure that you get a nice good oil change, that you got your antifreeze, and that you got plenty of windshield fluid, windshield washer fluid.
It's also important to make sure the work is done properly. This video sent out by the OPP shows a car being struck by a tire that flew off of another car.
After they replace the tire or put the tire back on the car, they misturk it to make sure that the tire is tight at the right pressure so to prevent the tire to fall off.
The CAA says it's also important to make sure that you have a fully stocked emergency kit when driving in these wintry conditions, and it should contain things like a flashlight, jumper cables, pylons, an extra cell phone charger, and a warm blanket. Greg Ross, CBC News, Toronto.
Let's go to meteorologist Colette Kennedy now with a first look at the forecast. And Colette, people waking up to our first blast of winter this morning, but this isn't even the main event.
Yeah, we're really looking at our first significant snowfall of the season for the city. And I know we had intermittent snow today, even some snow grains at times. And it was building up somewhat, especially off the roads on other surfaces. But that was lake effect, the enhancement out ahead of the system. The main system's been moving in and continues to affect us overnight tonight into early tomorrow morning. So winter weather travel advisory over a large section of southern and eastern Ontario, as you see there, kind of varying forms. The closer to the lake or lakeshore, we tend to see more of a very wet snow or even mixing in with the rainfall. You see that so clearly here, but it carries on through the overnight, and we are looking at this spreading into eastern Ontario, becoming heavier there. But by tomorrow morning's commute, I do think there's still going to be an impact and slow things down, but it will definitely be improving, getting lighter. And then we're just looking at some intermittent flurries kind of after that later in the day, but nothing as significant because the main storm will be gone. Now, I do want to show you the snowfall potential. In general, we're looking at, see all these areas in that turquoise, that's 5 to 10 centimeters. So that's really what we're talking about. But there'll be some lake enhancement. So that, again, could put a few highly localized, but some pockets up to potentially 10 to 15 centimeters. And closer to the lake, because of the mixing at times, probably in most cases, lesser amounts. Overnight tonight, though, really close to that freezing or right at it, and then 2 degrees, well below seasonal for our high for tomorrow.
All right, thanks so much, Colette. Stolen vehicles worth more than $1 million have been recovered as part of a multi-jurisdictional carjacking task force.
Well, this is a really successful outcome for our officers after a very significant problem we were facing with our community with the massive increase in carjacking incidents. And we were seeing this across the GTA.
Police releasing video today of what they're calling Operation GTA. The investigation began in June. Officers acted on multiple warrants last month, leading to the arrest of 16 people. They recovered 19 stolen vehicles worth $1.4 million. The accused are now facing more than 100 charges. Investigators say they also found an additional 50 vehicles with altered vehicle identification numbers, or VINs. Canada's housing market is continuing to cool. The latest figures from the Canadian Real Estate Association show both sales and prices were down again in October. The average price of a home in Canada dipped to about $645,000 last month, a drop of nearly 10% compared to a year ago. Now, it's a drop of more than 20% from the peak price back in February. The number of sales is off by more than a third from last October, and rising interest rates are cited as the cause of the slowdown. The minimum wage is not enough for residents to live comfortably in the GTA. That's according to the Ontario Living Wage Network, which just released its annual report. Now, no surprise here, a living wage in the GTA is higher than anywhere in the province. The network determined $23.15 is the hourly wage needed to live here. That's $7.65 more than Ontario's minimum wage. The living wage in most of the province is around $19. Housing, food, and transportation in 10 different regions are among the expenses used to calculate the amount. Premier Doug Ford taking some heat today for not following the doctor's advice. Yesterday, Dr. Kieran Moore, Ontario's Chief Medical Officer of Health, recommended people start masking up again due to a surge of sick children overwhelming pediatric ICUs. But the Premier showing up in the legislature this morning maskless. Queen's Park reporter Lorena Redicop has more.
Yesterday, the Chief Medical Officer of Health strongly advised all adults to wear masks indoors.
The interim NDP leader started off question period taking off his mask before speaking, while on the government side, most members did not wear masks. Today, the opposition parties all did.
Why is the Premier not taking leadership and wearing a mask to protect our children?
The Premier didn't answer. Instead, his government House leader responded.
This government has been taking leadership right from the beginning of the pandemic.
Later, Health Minister Sylvia Jones pinch hit for the Premier, one of the few government MPPs masked other than when responding.
There is nothing that the Premier hasn't done to protect our children and our most vulnerable.
Later, speaking to reporters, she defended her colleagues.
Personal choice is important here, and we should not be passing judgment on people who wear a mask or not wear a mask.
And she said this.
I think you have to take into consideration the size of the building, the size of the room. You know, we all make individual choices. We all have different circumstances in terms of who we are looking after at home.
But yesterday, the chief medical officer never mentioned room size.
I'm strongly recommending that all Ontarians, not just those at high risk, wear a mask in indoor public settings.
And if we can't convince those elected officials to follow their own medical officer of health's advice, how can we expect everybody else in the province to follow suit?
It's as viruses are hitting young children especially hard, mainly RSV and influenza. Pediatric ICU beds are full. Children's surgeries are being cancelled. Opposition parties want the government to do more to keep the situation from getting worse.
Public Health is not asking for mandatory masking in school
yet, but I can guarantee you the day that they do, we will be right there behind them.
The opposition parties also called for more public health messaging from the government on both masking and vaccinations. Lorenda Redicomp, CBC News, Toronto.
Welcome back. We have an exclusive look tonight inside Canada's largest children's hospital as it struggles with a surge in young sick patients. Like so many other pediatric hospitals, Sick Kids here in Toronto is swamped with a triple threat of respiratory illnesses. Christine Birak shows us the toll on staff and families in this rare report from behind the scenes.
Canada's largest children's hospital says it's never let cameras into its ICU or emergency room until now.
So this is the emergency?
Yeah, this is where patients and families enter into triage.
Dr. Jason Fisher is the division head of emergency at Sick Kids.
And typically we would expect to see about 230 patients a day, but we're seeing well over 300.
By noon, anxious parents with babies and young kids are lining up, mainly with flu and RSV symptoms. To protect their privacy, we can't show too much.
So let me ask you, are all of these rooms full?
All of these rooms are full.
In the background, you can hear the children in those rooms.
But we've just had a real high spike in the number of kids sick.
While times vary, some patients are waiting up to 12 hours here to see a doctor.
It's really been this perfect storm of different factors. We really don't have enough space in the system as it stands for them to be admitted to either a pediatric ward or, more importantly, to the ICU.
The strain on the intensive care unit is palpable. Many of their tiny patients are struggling to breathe.
We have about 5 patients in-house that we're having trouble placing internally.
Doctors and nurses are desperately searching for beds.
We have a patient that we're holding in emerge that needs to come. I don't have a spot for that patient. Kind of stuck right now. Like I feel like I'm a little bit handcuffed, to be honest. Yeah.
I wish I had nurses for you.
Yeah, me too.
Dr. Stephen Schwartz is chief of critical care.
That's what keeps us up at night, is that some child who really needs our care is going to be stuck somewhere else and unable to get in here.
Some patients are now being transferred to other hospitals. Sick Kids is also postponing surgeries children have been waiting months, even years for.
I think it's important that people understand what's going on in the province and really across the country and across North America right now.
I mean, there's that crib in the hall as well.
Back in the ER, charge nurse Lindsay Stewart-Leger is worried about staffing.
Definitely a lot of burnout.
Add to that, some parents are lashing out at staff, which has led to more security.
So what's the level of anxiety you're feeling right now?
It's definitely the highest it's ever been.
Everyone's exhausted, but no one's giving up. Many are hoping this surge will end soon, and Canadians can help by simply following public health advice. Christine Birak, CBC News, Toronto.
An unveiling was held today for 59 new modular homes in the city's East End. They're meant for seniors experiencing or at risk of homelessness.
This new affordable housing site, in my view, really represents the very best of what government can be and deliver, and what we can accomplish when we work together to tackle the biggest challenges in front of us right now, and that, of course, is the housing crisis. This is a very real and tangible example of how we can change people's lives, giving them a key to a front door and the dignity of a roof over their head.
The new homes will be studio apartments, each with a kitchen and a bathroom. The building will have common amenities for residents, including a dining room, laundry room, as well as a commercial kitchen that can provide on-site meals for residents. It's part of the city's rapid response launched during the pandemic to create 3,000 new affordable housing units. And you are looking at a live shot of the city, cloudy and foggy with snowfall tonight and cold. Currently, we are hovering around the freezing mark. Let's go back to Colette now with a more detailed look at your forecast. And Colette, the snow continuing to come through as we head into the overnight.
Yeah, we have a busy night for anyone who does need to be on the roads in the overnight hours. For some of our shift workers or for any reason, it's going to be slow going here as the snow has been filling in and continues to fall and move eastward. Even tomorrow morning, early commuters, I think, will be impacted. But as we get towards the afternoon hours, it really breaks apart and we get into just some flurry activity, with the exception around St. Catharines, where you'll still be into what will be mostly just some light rain continuing to fall. So we talked about some of the accumulations, and I'll get back to those in a moment, but I do want to just show you, just jumping ahead, this is more for travel interest, that we'll see a real flow across Lake Erie setting up near the end of the day Thursday, and that could really push some significant amounts into Buffalo. So traveling across the border, and maybe not a great idea for you as you are heading into this weekend or the end of the week. So the snowfall potential, we'll take this up and just generalize that 5 to 10 centimeters, less in most cases, the closer that you are to the lakeshore, with a few areas where it will be enhanced by the lake. And then temperatures tonight, we are looking at them right around freezing or dipping just below by tomorrow morning. And that really lends to that mix where you're getting some wet snow mixing in with some of that rainfall. And just to look at your 5-day forecast here then, and seeing that our temperatures remain well below seasonal here, that trend is going to carry on. So 2 for tomorrow, 3 into Thursday, sunshine mixing with some flurry activity. And by Friday, we're talking about those temperatures barely above freezing. And in fact, daytime highs will be below as we head into the weekend. So if you're looking for an end to this cold snap, I'm sorry, it's not coming anytime soon. And in fact, I see this colder air lingering well into next week as well.
All right, thanks so much, Colette. Finally tonight, millions of red crabs are racing to the beach on Australia's Christmas Island. The annual migration from the rainforest to the coast is in full swing. The crustaceans cross streets, climb bridges, and make their way through residential neighborhoods to get to the sea. As some roads are closed to allow safe passage, they'll eventually spawn off the coast of Western Australia. And that is our show for you tonight. Thank you so much for watching. Maribel Tarouk has your next local newscast tomorrow at 6. I will see you back here tomorrow night at 11. Have a great night, everyone.